Fear is the great enemy of our potential. The little voice that whispers, "You can't," the paralysis that hits right when opportunity knocks. It keeps good people from becoming great, and great people from becoming legends. We all feel it, but what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary isn't a lack of fear, but a mastery of it. For centuries, one man has stood as the archetype of conquest, a figure who stared down empires and redrew the map of Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte. But his greatest battles weren't just fought on the plains of Austerlitz or in the snows of Russia. They were fought inside his own head. So, how did he do it? He didn't just manage fear, he weaponized it. And the psychological tactics he used are just as potent today for anyone looking to achieve something more. These aren't just dusty history lessons. They are a blueprint for mastering the enemy within. The first pillar of Napoleon's fortress against fear was a relentless bias for action. He had a simple philosophy: take time and deliberate, but when the time for action has arrived, stop thinking and go in. Napoleon understood a fundamental truth about our minds. Fear lives in the space we create by hesitating. The more you sit and game out everything that could go wrong, the bigger the monster of fear gets. Action is the only thing that starves of oxygen. Take the Battle of Arcole in 1796. His army was pinned down, facing a heavily defended bridge, and his men were exhausted and demoralized under a rain of Austrian fire. Fear was winning that a more conventional general might have retreated or deliberated for hours. Napoleon did neither. The story goes that seeing his men falter, he grabbed a flag and personally led a charge toward a bridge, becoming a living symbol of forward momentum. While his officers, fearing for his life, pulled him back into a muddy ditch, the psychological damage to the enemy and the inspiration for his own men was done. The hesitation was shattered. The principle here is undeniable. Fear is a future-oriented emotion. It's anxiety about a negative outcome that hasn't happened yet. By taking decisive action, you yank your mind out of that imagined, dreadful future and into the immediate present. You stop being a passive victim of your anxieties and become an active agent in the moment. The what-ifs become irrelevant in the face of doing. So what's the takeaway? When you feel that grip of fear tightening, when you're paralyzed by the what-ifs, the solution isn't to think your way out. It's to act your way out. Pick one small, decisive action and do it immediately. Send the email. Make the call. Write the first sentence. Your own personal charge across the bridge, no matter how small, can break the morale of the fear inside your own head. If action was Napoleon's spear, his shield was what he called a moral force. He famously said that in war, the moral is to physical as 3 is to 1. He knew that weapons and logistics were nothing compared to the power of a belief that burns inside a soldier. Fear can rout an army of 100,000, but a powerful purpose can make 10,000 men feel invincible. When Napoleon took command of the army of Italy in 1796, he found them in a pathetic state. They were demoralized, unpaid, underfed, and ill-equipped. It was an army on the verge of total collapse. Another commander might have focused on supplies. Napoleon focused on their souls. He didn't just promise them boots and bread. He promised them glory and honor. He stood before these ragged men and painted a picture of the fertile plains of Italy, connecting their individual suffering to a cause far greater than themselves. He turned their misery into fuel. Psychologically, this is one of the most effective antidotes to fear there is. When your why is strong enough, you can bear almost any how. At its core, fear is a selfish emotion. It's about self-preservation. IT asks, what will happen to me? But a powerful purpose shifts the question. It's no longer just about you. It's about your family, your mission, your principles. This reframing shrinks the threat. Your personal anxieties seem petty when weighed against a noble cause. Napoleon's soldiers were no longer just fighting Austrians. They were fighting for the destiny of France. That is a force multiplier no enemy can match. The lesson here is a question. What is your why? If you're facing fear in your career or your life, it's often because your purpose isn't clear. You're focused on fear of failure or judgment. Define your mission. Write it down. Let it be the first thing you see in the morning. When your life is driven by purpose, fear gets demoted to the passenger seat. We're about to hit two of Napoleon's most powerful, yet overlooked, strategies for building a mindset that doesn't just resist fear, but absolutely dominates it. If you're getting some real value from this breakdown, take a second to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We pull timeless wisdom from history's greatest minds that you can use to build your own legacy. Napoleon's third strategy wasn't about a single moment of bravery, but about building an entire environment where courage was a default setting. He was an architect of courage. In an era where generals were aristocrats who inherited their rank, Napoleon created a meritocracy. A soldier's worth was based on his talent and bravery, not his bloodline. This philosophy is captured in the famous saying attributed to him. Every French soldier carries a marshal's baton in his knapsack. This was a cultural revolution. He learned the names of his men and personally gave out awards for bravery on the battlefield. There's a powerful story from the siege of Toulon, where a young Napoleon was an artillery commander. One cannon battery was in such an exposed, dangerous position that no one would volunteer to man it. Instead of threats, Napoleon simply gave a new name, the Battery of the Men Without Fear. Suddenly, soldiers were fighting each other for the honor of serving there. The psychological genius here is profound. Fear is contagious, but so is courage. By creating a system where bravery was seen, celebrated, and rewarded, Napoleon cultivated an ecosystem of valor. He made courage the highest status trait a man could have. Men began to fear mediocrity more than they feared death. This is social proof in its most potent form. When you are surrounded by people who act bravely and expect bravery from you, you are far more likely to rise to the occasion. The lesson for us is huge. You have to be the architect of your own environment. Who do you surround yourself with? Do they inspire courage or do they feed your fears? Curate your inner circle. Find your own battery of the men without fear. Join communities and build friendships that hold a standard of courage. Your environment shapes your mindset. If you want to be fearless, surround yourself with the fearless.
Section 4. The Ownership of Destiny. The final, and perhaps most powerful of Napoleon's psychological weapons was his radical sense of ownership. From his greatest triumphs to his most crushing defeats, Napoleon held an unshakable belief that he was the master of his own destiny. While others blame luck or their enemies, Napoleon took ownership. This mentality is the ultimate antidote to the victimhood where fear loves to breed. Nowhere is this clearer than in his escape from exile on the island of Elba. He had lost everything. His empire, his army, his power. A lesser man would have been broken. But Napoleon's mind didn't work that way. He didn't see himself as a prisoner, but as an emperor who was temporarily inconvenienced. While in exile, he governed Elba like a miniature empire, reorganizing its politics and infrastructure. He was acting as if his return was a foregone conclusion, and when the time came, he escaped. Landing in France with just a handful of men, he began his march to Paris. When a royalist regiment was sent to stop him, they blocked his path, rifles aimed. Fear should have consumed him. Instead, he got off his horse, walked calmly towards them, opened his coat and declared, "Soldiers, if there is one among you who wants to kill his emperor, here I am." In that moment, there was no fear, only absolute ownership. The soldiers, stunned by this incredible confidence, lowered their weapons and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" They joined him. He didn't win them over with an argument. He won them with an aura of total command over his fate. The psychology here is about your locus of control. People with an external locus of control believe their lives are shaped by outside forces. They are victims of circumstance, and so they live in constant fear of what might happen to them. People with an internal locus of control, like Napoleon, believe they are the primary architects of their lives. This mindset is fundamentally empowering. It turns fear from a terrifying external monster into an internal problem to be managed. By taking 100% responsibility for your life, you reclaim your power from the jaws of fear. The final takeaway is this: stop blaming. Stop making excuses. The world, your boss, the economy, they are not responsible for your destiny. You are. He who fears being conquered is sure of defeat. Own your circumstances, and you will own your fate. Conclusion: a bias for action. The moral multiplier. An architecture of courage. The ownership of destiny. These weren't just battlefield tactics. They were the pillars of Napoleon Bonaparte's psychological empire. He understood that true conquest always begins from within. He wasn't born without fear. He simply built a system to master it. He knew courage wasn't about having the strength to go on. It was about going on when you don't have the strength. The story of Napoleon teaches us that greatness is not just automatically given by God. It is the result of a conscious decision to confront our deepest fears, to weaponize our minds, and to forge our own destiny through sheer force of will. The same fears you face today, of failure, of judgment, of the unknown, were faced by the man who conquered Europe. He just developed a system to conquer them first. That system is now yours.